Hello and welcome to episode 422 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place with a small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt and joining me as always is the creator of the comic series Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
Not to be mistaken with the Vanguard Saga.
Vanguard Saga. I wouldn't want to try and take any of their shine.
Their heat.
Yeah. I was about to say the one and only Vanguard comic that you need to read, but Dan, you're very humble, and that's what I love about you. You know. Yeah. Speaking of humble, what rhymes with humble? Apple crumble. And who else is delicious? It's Tony Esmond.
Did you have that written down, or you just made it up?
No, I literally just made that up, and now I'm really hungry.
I love a bit of Vanguard. I do love custard, don't you? I like a bit of custard.
Yeah. I don't trust
the Americans do custard.
Yeah, of course they do custard. To our American listeners, of course you do custard.
Do they call it custard? They probably call it something else, don't they? Something cooler sounding.
They call it jelly, don't they?
No, that's jam.
You can't.
You maniac! You're trying to start an international incident on this show.
He's trying to get me to do my jelly joke again, isn't he?
When they say, "Oh no, jam's actually called jelly in America," yes, I know. Everyone knows. It's been common knowledge for like 20 fucking years.
You can't jelly your cock in it anyway.
Oh Jesus! Welcome to the show, everyone, and we also have a friend of the show joining us for this, and he also said that he would join us for the entire show. What a fool! We are rejoined by artist and friend of the pod and part of the ACP community, Sam Hardacre. Welcome.
Good evening.
Or welcome back.
I love it when the podcast like derails within the first 2 minutes.
We're just showing off because you're here.
It's just a weekly occurrence, just an absolute weekly occurrence.
It is. It's actually disappointing when it goes smoothly.
Yeah.
I haven't done the advert yet.
We are going to put you on the spot straight away, though, because as we were about to say, you can't really trust anyone that doesn't like custard. Sam, do you like custard? Oh my God! There was a pause.
Yeah. There is such a thing as too much custard. I think.
There's such a thing as too much custard.
Yeah.
I've got to say, there is. There's got to be a kind of a custard to thingamabob ratio, surely.
Yeah.
Would you have it every day for a week? I would. Maybe not a month.
For every meal, though?
Not for breakfast. No, I would, yeah.
Not for breakfast. Right. Why would you stop at breakfast?
Lunch, you could have custard.
This is a comic book show. Welcome to the show, everyone. And we talk about the important topics in independent and small press comics. And we're here to entertain you. We've got a few very interesting sort of topics, conversation. And we're just going to be talking about comics for the next hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun. And we've got some fun stuff to talk about this week. Do you know what else is fun?
Comic House.
I was going to say like a log flume. But Comic House is also very fun, and they are our sponsors. They are an indie comic marketplace that loves indie comics as much as we do, as much as you at home do. I don't know why when I say that I point at the screen. Do you guys do this when we're doing the show?
No.
You kind of. What do you mean, Dan? What do you mean, no?
No, we don't.
Don't point towards the screen.
There's just absolutely no emotion in you at all. You just hear, just unbelievable.
My hands are just on the keyboard, you know.
Keep them where I can see them.
Pants.
Stop fidgeting. Unless, of course, you're using your hands to swipe through the Comic House website and its app, the digital app.
Search its database.
Yeah, it's got a massive database.
Massive.
It has an enormous selection of indie comics on there. You can list your book on there.
Robbing selection of comics.
It's a real girthy selection.
Pete's going to pay us extra for this one. You watch.
Yeah, loving this one.
Yeah. It's a... I'm trying to think of other ways to describe it. It's just awesome, and you should check it out. And
Brilliant.
If you like reading digital comics, there's a Comic House app. It is basically like Netflix for comics. But it's got more value for money.
Because there's nothing on Netflix anymore, is there?
Absolute shite.
Every time I go to click on something on Netflix, it's some really bad dub. It just fucks me off.
Or just some show that they've just spent a lot of money on and it's absolute rubbish. But I always look at it like, I'm pleased that the concept and the visual artists and all the people behind the scenes have got a job. But the writers are usually shite. But that... Don't get me started. Comic House is fun.
Don't mention the writer's strike. We'll have Twitter on us.
Yeah.
Comic House is wonderful.
I'm quite pleased AI's on the rise with those writers.
Basically, £3 a month, you get access to an enormous library of digital indie comics. It's been added to all the time. To find out more and get stuck into this wonderful world of indie comics that we talk about on a weekly basis and start forcing
Get stuck in is a favourite phrase of yours. I like get stuck in. I don't use it enough.
Ooh. What was that?
That was my phone. Apologies.
How many years, Dan? How many years?
Way too many to be making amateur mistakes like that.
Unbelievable. To the naughty corner. And while Dan's thinking about the wrongs he did, you should check out comichouse.com. And thank you to Pete and the guys for sponsoring the show and, as always, just putting up with this absolute mess. But what isn't a mess is this... I was about to say is this show, but it is.
It is a mess. It's like Custard.
But there are some comics out there.
The big puddle of spilt custard.
This is going to.
Have you ever spilled your custard?
Jesus!
Is this just going to be called the Custard episode? Yeah, actually, I'm going to call it the Custard episode, just so listeners are like, what on earth is
we'll be
this
able
about?
to tell. We'll be able to tell because before we came on, we were talking about we can never tell what's going to be a popular episode or not.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter the title, how much we promote it. Some of them just shoot up, and some of them don't. So let's just call it the Custard episode and see whether people.
Amazing. Welcome to the show, everyone. We've got some fun stuff to talk about. And Sam, later on we're gonna catch up with your comic making journey. See how that's going. So we're gonna put him on the spot.
I'm gonna grill you.
We've already, and also he's got a couple of amazing books to recommend later as well. So looking forward to that. But gents, we start? What do you want to start with? There was I
thought we're gonna go on.
God, no, you take it away.
I can start with the big game.
Yeah.
Yes.
The big dog.
Okay.
Game
right.
In town.
So we're gonna start with a comic book issue discussion. This was a comic book that came out recently. It's an event book.
Yeah, we dug it.
A very unique book, which is from the Millarworlds universe. Of course, you've heard us talk about some of the individual titles in that. But this is a big gangbusters crossover of all the titles, everything leading up to it. Fair enough that one of us should like it, but it's we wanted to talk about it as a whole.
Well, I think we've got degrees of people who are in that universe amongst us, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm going to say I've read most of nearly everything he's put out. Dan, you're pretty much the same, are you?
No, I honestly was kind of surprised when I was working my way through this. I was like, bloody hell, I haven't read that. Oh shit, I haven't read that.
Right.
But you don't need to read all that to get it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is what was interesting to me because obviously you've heard us talk about titles from Mark Miller and a murderer's row of absolutely fantastic creators that he's working with. And shout out to all those people who are getting paid by working with him.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic to see, and they're clearly loving it by the work that's put on from each individual book. There is such a wide range of books and sort of themes and all of these things going on that certainly there's stuff that I've read and there's a lot that I haven't. Not because I think, I'm just not interested in that, but you kind of you can pick and choose. That one's more my bag. That one's, this one's more my flavour. Sometimes you check one out purely because. Like the recommend section of this show, people could just go, you need to read this because it's really brilliant. For instance, Nemesis Reloaded was a perfect example of that because the original series wasn't a fan of.
No.
And I checked out Reloaded purely as a kind of
we sort of nagged you to read it a bit, didn't we?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm hearing good things. I'm interested to see how it's sort of been rebooted or, reloaded. And that, it was night and day. A night and day experience for me. And
like I said, I kind of found the first Nemesis a bit kind of too...
shock value?
There's a lot of shock value, I generally kind of, as Miller's kind of evolved in his style, I found his work just to get better and better. I feel like there was a bit too much reliance on shock at the start for him. And the more he's kind of I wouldn't say matured, but changed, it's just become more and more my bag.
Yeah,
I agree. I think the thing is with his work is I've always seen him like this since he's sort of branched off and done his own books.
Yeah,
I suppose from Wanted onwards is the fact, which is apparently it's 17 years ago, Wanted or something. I can't remember, something like that. Is the fact that it's an easy go-to for presents for me, and I think this is an ideal model because I can you know, as all these trades come out, I'll get my boy for his birthday and Christmas, I'll get him trades, you know. And these are easy because I know Magic Order, Nemesis, Huck, all this sort of stuff. I can get a trade. He doesn't have to have been entrenched in any kind of complicated 50-year-old universe to be able to enjoy them and read them, you know.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can literally just pick them up and away you go.
Yeah. But of course, with that all changed with this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
possibly,
possibly. And
Sam, did you have much kind of? We spoke briefly, but you said you had a little knowledge of some of this stuff. You kind of went in blind with this, or?
Yeah, I mean, my knowledge is to the extent of like I've heard of Kick-Ass, I've seen the film, I've seen the first one at least. I've never read the book, and I've kind of got a vague idea of what Jupiter's Legacy is about, but I've not read any of that. So I came into it like essentially not knowing anything whatsoever.
Yeah.
You've heard. I'm guessing you've heard us talk about the ambassadors and Nemesis on here. I suppose would that be right?
I must have done. It.
It just fills in and out, doesn't it, mate?
Yeah. Well, I think we mentioned a few, and like there's been certain standouts. Oh, just in case, spoiler warning. Just in case we drop anything, we're going to try not to. But there may be certain bits that we talk about. That
Mark Millard dropped a graphic of like the reading order and what's going to be in it. So there's a lot of these that I haven't read. We've got Wanted, American Jesus, Kick-Ass, Superior, Kingsman, Super Crooks, Legacy, Chrononauts, MPH, Starlight, got Hit Girl, Empress, Huck, Reborn, Magic Order, Prodigy, Space Bandits, Nightclub, and then we're into King of Spies, Ambassadors, Nemesis Loaded, and then Big Game. Will King of Spies being part of this?
That's interesting.
I've got it fucking hooked because I thought that was a standalone, but.
Well, I think he's writing a sequel, isn't he, to that?
Really?
Don't forget there's a son in it and everything.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Roland, isn't it? Is his son called Roland?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
It's another thing that's interesting about this potential sort of universe crossover that it makes me even more interested to see how it all plays out.
We haven't mentioned the artist yet, mate. We should probably mention the.
Oh, it's fucking top tier for me. I love this art.
Oh, this is Pepe Larraz, isn't it?
Yes.
Is the artist.
Yeah.
Giovanna Nero is the colorist, and Clem Robbins is the letterer.
And there's cover artists, alternative variant covers by J.D. Jones, Frank Quietly, and Jay Lee, and Danny Earls as well. That's pretty cool.
But I think what's interesting about a crossover like this is a lot of those books. For instance, I was a fan of Chrononauts. I don't expect something like that to be in the same universe as these other things, and to say that they are. And like Huck, for instance, there's been a wonderful sense of almost one and dones. These are just fresh little stories you can enjoy by themselves. One of the reasons I to be honest, I wanted to read Huck was I can read this and I don't need to know anything else. I can enjoy it for the story.
I think he's writing the sequel to that, isn't he? At the moment, I saw him tweet
Huck, but that's what's interesting. You know, there was all of these sort of stories, and to bring that all back together in an event sort of miniseries is fascinating to me, and will be very fascinating to see the echoes of it for the rest of the books moving forward, because this is almost like a tentpole moment for the next phase of Millarworld, isn't it? Really, it's almost like, you know, the Avengers movie before they started the second phase of all the films. It's like you had the build up, bang, event. And then
should I tee it up? Like what?
Give us because it ends at the end of Nemesis Reloaded is where it starts, isn't it?
Yeah. So he's kind of approached by this kind of shadowy cabal, which you get. It's revealed that it's the main character from Wanted. His name is Wesley
Gibbons, I think.
Gibbons, yes. And the comic, forget the film. Like this is all comic stuff, but they run this huge kind of like global network of this superpowered criminal organization, and in Wanted they take out all the heroes and basically there's only the villains left, and they start revealing that over time the heroes are starting to come back into the world, and they've got to once again go out and shut the shit down before it gets out of control. So
I think this issue bears second readings, right? And in my second reading of it, I began to perhaps join the dots of some of the sort of layers of it, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
I think there are moments there's over satire in this. You know, we get that comment, don't we, about they can't find anyone in America that Americans will agree with because they're just this sort of two-party kind of system.
Yeah.
Is this a wider commentary on there's no more heroes anymore, as the song goes? Is that do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
We've had an age of heroes, which we kind of did in comics and in the wider world, and then we went through this prolonged age of anti-heroes and villains. And is that what he's talking about there? I wonder.
It's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Is these people they're going up against? Is it just to kind of? I guess the ambassadors. You would think of them more classic heroes. They're trying to make the world a better place and change stuff for the better.
What's interesting is he's got this universe where you have like the Nemesis and the Wanted, and you have these sort of darker stories, but he's a man that loves heroes, and he's been building up loads of heroes in these books, and this is almost I can see it, and my hope for it is the rise of this new breed of heroes, because
I agree, man.
We live in a world. I mean, this is going to sound like a bigger statement. We live in a world where the villains have been running it for far too fucking long.
Yeah, is that what he's saying? Do you know? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah,
that's a kind of
yeah.
In reality, is that what he's saying?
And
that's the sort of the meta narrative, as it were.
Yeah,
and there could be a point. I mean, there's a specific year, like is it 1986 in this book when they say?
Yeah.
Like,
see, to me, again, that's the year that comics went dark and gritty.
Yeah,
the mid 80s, 84, 86, those periods. That's your Swamp Things and your Dark Knights and your Watchmen's and all of that stuff. Really, I know they slightly before that, but that's when it really hits. To me, that's what he's saying. I don't know.
Yeah, the world got darker at that point. The old world of heroes.
The naivety of comics kind of disappeared, didn't it?
Yeah.
So in a certain respect,
And and certainly with a lot of the books that he's creating, there's an old school like. Is it Starlight? Is that the character?
Yeah. Oh, mate, that. Me and Dan were chatting about this, weren't we, last time? I think just before you'd read it, V. Yeah. And we were saying we're reading it because he's in it. No spoilers, but he's in it for about 4 pages.
And
we're like, please don't kill him.
No, that is a beautiful
Please don't kill him. Please don't kill him. Please don't kill him. Because the thing about Miller, he's like Kirkman. He'll fucking kill people.
Yeah.
Because
when
there
there's
is babies,
a character like that, and they get introduced early on, it's like, right, they're gonna show that they're not gonna. He's not gonna fucking around these guys, and he's gonna be the first one to get killed. To sort of show I ain't fucking around. But it didn't happen. I was like,
he switches that, doesn't he? Because someone else maybe is getting killed.
Yeah.
But I was reading that nervously, thinking, please, I'd like that. I love that character. I mean, that Goran Parloff series is fucking peerless as far as I'm concerned.
Wanted never sat well with me, the ending. And I know he does that. The Wesley guy does like the FU at the reader, which was like really quite punk at the end. But I didn't like the fact that the heroes lost and the bad guys were in charge. And so this kind of like making it right just feels so fucking good to me. It's cathartic.
He plays. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the use of cliche in comics later, but he plays with, I suppose, an archetype here, doesn't he? With Edison Crane, e.g. Prodigy from i.e. Prodigy from his series, which I love. I think it's a great series. He's Batman in this, right?
Yeah,
that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Well, Nemesis is the anti-Batman, isn't
he? Yeah. He's almost Reed Richards Batman, isn't he? He's that kind of the super genius kind of like, And there's so many high concept, but also fantastically old school comic book vibes about this. That because, and I think maybe it's the world of cynicism we live in. Maybe it's because a lot of the comics that we read are pretty cynical now, and Miller has a certain dark satire to his books that one of the reasons I didn't like Nemesis was it was so nihilistic and dark, and I was like, oh. And this has
he's also a guy who can write great Fantastic Four, great Superman as well. That's the thing I find interesting about him.
Yeah. So reading this, and without spoil, there's lots of people in this issue. And a wonderful sort of build-up. There's a wonderful build-up of tension. But there's a hope. I want to see... With all great superhero team stories, you don't want the superheroes to come in and wipe the floor with everyone. There's got to be the challenge. There's got to be the danger. There's got to be all of that. You want the heroes to be challenged. And the joy of a fantastic story, in any medium really, is seeing people overcome it.
Yeah, and struggling to overcome.
And good overcoming in the end. I would like it. I mean, I'm not expecting it. I would like that also, that good overcoming in the end to be without a, oh God, but I'm so damaged. You know, I mean, there's so much.
The thing with this,
now.
though, it's only 5 issues, man, as well. I do think, like,
it's going to rattle along.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Ambassadors. I did think, how's he going to get all this done?
Yeah.
You know, but there's a lot. You know, there's no decompression in this one, is it? It's quite chock full of
really interested
action,
to see what happens with Kick-Ass in it.
Because,
the whole kind of like, we can't
he wants
find
to be an ambassador
from America, and there's like Dave Lewinsky is his name, and sort of saying, look, I could do it, man. like
he's begging, he's writing begging letters, isn't he?
Yeah.
But the other thing I like about it is conspiracy theories. So it couldn't be more on point at the moment, couldn't he? For there's this we're not going to spoil it, but there's this dig going on and something's discovered, and it is amongst, at the moment we're getting these Senate hearings about UFOs. It does seem really, really topical, doesn't it? That perhaps a lot of these conspiracy theories that have been going about, perhaps some of them are true. Is what he's playing on a little bit here, isn't he? I think.
Yeah. Sam, obviously, what was your experience with this book?
I mean, I was admittedly quite lost to start with, because I kind of went into it completely cold, not knowing anything, and it's quite a cold open as well. Like the opening page is just like, I won't spoil it, but something serious has happened.
Yeah.
And as a fresh reader, you kind of go, right, what's led to this? So that was kind of like, so I was sort of thinking, maybe not knowing that it was part of a wider thing, I was thinking maybe this will be explained a bit further on, or in a future issue or whatever. But I'm guessing it's been fed in from a previous book. So I kept on, I just kept reading through it. And I kind of, I enjoyed the writing, I enjoyed the artwork. The artwork's amazing, and the color work is really good. And you can, you definitely have this sense that it's building up to something. Like there's all the, like these, it's kind of told through little sort of vignettes, isn't it? Like, it focuses on one set of characters for a couple of pages, then it scoots over to another set of characters, and you kind of, you get the sense that the kind of the chess pieces are being put in place, and the next few issues is where shit's really going to go down. So it's kind of intriguing from that perspective of like, right, what is going to happen? Even as a new reader, sort of half the time thinking, I'm not really sure who these people are, not sure what their motivations are. But there is still a bit of a, there is a feeling of, right, I do feel like I want to finish reading this just to see where it goes.
To me, this harks back to what comics used to be. So, before the days of trades and digital, you'd pick up an issue of the Defenders or something, and you go, I don't know who any of these people are.
Yeah,
I need to learn about it, and because of that, you go to comic marts and fairs and pick up back issues and stuff like that, and you'd work it out. And I genuinely think he's doing two things here, Miller. He's doing that. It's a callback to that, but he's also a canny businessman, and he's saying, well, if you want to know about this, go back and buy this trade. I think it's not stupid. I think it's there's a lot of people. Will, I don't think anyone's appeared yet who I haven't read about, but there's a couple of, I don't know, is there a couple of trades, there's a couple of things that maybe someone hasn't caught up on. Miller, even hardcore Miller fans might not have read everything, and they'll go back and find that trade, because he made a point of tweeting, I think it was yesterday, say all Miller World remains in print. So that's quite a telling comment there.
Yeah. You can go back and fucking read any of this. It's great.
Yeah. It's got some depth to it as well, I think. I after all the 20 last trades I've read of his, I trust him now. Magic Order, brilliant. King of Spies, brilliant. I trust him. Nemesis Reload, brilliant. I trust him to bring it home.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I was really I'm really jazzed to fucking see how this plays out.
Yeah.
And another thing I like about Miller's writing is he just does great one-liners and great sort of like lines that just I love a comic that we send each other panels.
Yeah,
and it happened on this. It's always a good sign, isn't it? Great. Yeah.
I was going to do that this week actually with my recommend, because there's loads of panels in that which are like,
there
this is fucking class.
I think it's also clawing and kicking and dragging like big 2 books into this, and I haven't read any, so I'm gonna say that for a while. So I'm gonna say that up front. But reading this first issue of an event where I don't really have any context of the whole universe, I'm more jazzed about what this event story is going to be than I have been with anything that the Big Two have done in terms of their events for a long time. And I think in some ways it helps because, correct me if I'm wrong, during Big Game, are any other Millarworld books coming out? Is it just Big Game? I think it's just Big Game, isn't it?
Fight Club ended this week, didn't it?
Exactly. So it's almost like there's a concentration on this is what you've got to read, rather than this is what you've got to read. Oh, by the way, there's a series over there. You got that's a tie-in. There's a series over there. That's a tie-in. There's a series that fucking muddies the waters and makes the reading experience sometimes fucking monotonous. How many times have we heard from people we know or friends who just sort of like, oh god, the tie-in issue was just absolutely pointless. It broke up the story. It did this, that, and the other. Whereas to have a sort of like, here's a big event comic, bam, this is what you got to read. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
It almost ties in with like the discussion we've been having. You guys mentioned it on the pod last week, and the discussion on the Slack as well regarding the Star Wars comics.
Yeah.
And that was one of the issues I had with the Star Wars comics, is that you started very quickly getting around to, you'd read one issue and then you'd move on to the next one, and then something had happened in that issue and you're like, hang on a minute, what's happened here? And then you realise, you had to have read,
this is now tied into the Yoda's cousin series of comics. It's like that.
Yeah. And it really quickly got really fucking confusing, and that's why I abandoned it, because I was like, even on the Marvel app, when I'm not actually paying for new issues and things like that, I was like, I just can't be arsed figuring this out. Like, if I have to think too hard, especially with Marvel Limited on a digital reading app, like the sort of the reading experience should be getting out. The app should be getting out of the way of the reader. So what they should be doing is queuing up the next logical
a quick rant about the Marvel app while you say it is I've gone back to read a few events, and I was reading Shadowlands. Is it? What's that Daredevil one?
Oh, why did you do that?
I don't know. And and in the back of those issues, there's a reading guide to the issues you read. Right in the back of the physical issues, and in the back of the digital issues is a reading guide. The guide on the app doesn't keep to it at all. I feel like the intern who's programmed them into the app, it's just fucking put, I'll just do issues 1 to 5, whatever, and you think, what about Shadowlands Avengers? Or, all you have to do is go to the last page of this comic, you can find it, mate. I mean, it's not difficult,
And I think, if this event series that's out, if, like you're saying, it is entirely focused on that, so for 5 issues or whatever it is, there's nothing else coming out until it's finished, then I think that's a good move from a reader's perspective, because it just it allows you to concentrate the whole reading experience on this one set of
and I think
events.
I think we're pre-programmed to think that the extra issues. You remember Civil War Frontline that came out was nowhere near as good as Civil War was. We're sort of pre-programmed to realise that they're not going to be as good as the real book. Yeah. They're probably just there as a cash cow.
Yeah,
I
think one other thing about.
Sorry.
Go on, Sam. No, go for it.
I was going to say I don't read too much Big Two stuff, but I got into the Blackest Night event that DC put out in like 2009, I think it was, and I picked up a load of like the spin-off sort of 3-issue runs that they did for like Wonder Woman and things like that, and thinking back, bearing in mind I've not read them since about 2010. I kind of struggled to kind of get into them, because I was like, where does this kind of fit in with the rest of the story kind of thing?
Yeah.
I may need to go back and reread them, because it's a long time ago and I can't remember what I did last week. So, but I remember having a sense of like, how does this all fit together? And it's like, no, just give me like the core story you're trying to tell, and don't kind of muddy the water. But that might just be me, because I'm a bit simplistic.
Yeah,
No,
that was kind of the beginning around that period where I was like,
Yeah.
fucking hell, here we go.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the recent X event? There was apparently 52, was it Thing of Swords or X of Swords, or it was, there was apparently like 52 issues attached to it or something.
That's the way.
Just doesn't need to be. Because also, when you collect it, no one can afford to buy that fucking book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
Counterproductive to sales, I think. And I think,
yeah. You know, considering that, you know, if we talk about Civil War being the boom that kicked off all of this, Civil War was a nice, succinct sort of like bunch of issues. You know,
don't need anything else.
How many people have just that trade from that?
Yeah.
You know? I've got Civil War, but I don't have any of the other tie-in graphic novels. I don't need it.
I've got the Iron Man one, and that's what got me into Civil War, because I think my brother bought me the Iron Man one. Just randomly.
Is he a bit cheap, your brother? Because that's always obviously the cheaper of the two trades, wasn't it? You know.
No, I think he you know, because I liked Iron Man. The film came out around then. So yeah, and that's when I went to the comic shop and went, I've read this. What the hell's Civil War? And the guy went, here you go.
Cool.
That's cool.
From a creating perspective, and obviously the writing and, you know, the story choices. Here's a question for you. Miller has obviously crafted all this, and it's all his own characters. And certainly when characters die or something bad happens to a character, or they have like a moment in the sun, it feels like the creators absolutely fucking love these characters that they're doing, even if they're doing horrible things to them. There is a passion that I can see. The moments feel bigger because of it. Do you think that has more weight than some of these? You know, you work for hire. You've been given a job to do like a big Marvel event, and you're given a bunch of characters. You don't really care about some of these characters.
Well, the trouble is that it used to be an attitude like maybe like 10, 15 years ago when someone picked up the pen, pencil, whatever to write about a character. It's because you got the impression they loved them and they didn't want to see
They knew about them.
They knew about them, yeah. But nowadays it seems like, oh, you writing this character. What's it about? Oh, no.
Just make it about something else.
Yeah. So it's actually not about them. It's about a side character. That's basically a self-insert.
I think as well. I think when these people are getting these things, as I understand it, you know, he's very, you know, we've been laughing at the tweets he's been putting out, you know, of Gandolfini sitting there smoking his cigars, and he's written, "Who am I going to nick off Marvel and DC next?" You know, so he does. They are well taken care of, aren't they? So there is that motivation. If you see what I mean, financially, and I guess as you know, they're in the gang now, aren't they? And they're part of the firm. You know, so you're in the mafia now. But in a good way, no murdering. But I think also what you're talking about that way, there's a weight of expectation if you're drawing Spider-Man or Judge Dredd or Batman or something, aren't there? You know, there's that thing, and you I guess some of these artists and some of these writers are afraid of veering off the track with them. But with something like Prodigy, they can do what they fucking like with it.
Yeah. But like, even it speaks to the moments when, you know, characters are on these pages that are from books that Pepe hasn't drawn. But the characters they're still given the moment, whether it's good things or bad things.
Yeah, God only knows what the financial model is around this one.
They look bloody glorious on the page. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's was it Ahmed Khan, one of the ambassadors?
Yeah,
isn't it?
I think he's a new one for this issue, isn't he?
Yeah. Is he really? I haven't read the ambassadors.
I think that's right.
I was trying to remember if he was or not.
Yeah.
They say he's a new one in it, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's a scene of him just taking off, and he looks fucking majestic. Do you know what I mean? It's a smaller panel, but like immediately it's like, this guy's legit. You know, whether I know him or not, and it's just...
And Pepe's had to take older characters and rework them as well, isn't he? Which is quite an interesting thing. So JR's characters, he's had to rework a little bit, you know.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
It's just interesting to see where it goes, and the fact that these characters, they ain't gonna die, and then they're gonna be back in 5 issues time, because death is pretty permanent in the kind of the metaverse, as it were.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's pose this question. We'll all have to answer it. You can kill a major character in the Marvel universe, right? And they never come back. You are given the solid gold lifetime legal document that says this character will never come back. Who are you going to kill? Let's go to the guest first.
Jesus. I'm frantically looking at like the few Marvel
or DC
comics that I
or
own.
DC. If you want
let's say
DC,
Marvel
or
or
DC.
DC. Yeah.
Oh God, that is.
Oh Jesus, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I might just have to pluck one out at random and just say like, I don't know, Mr. Fantastic
person.
or something, just to
Oh,
just see
you
how
beast! You animal!
You monster!
Oh, I'm putting that on Twitter.
I love the Fantastic Four books, and I think it's the Miller ones, the Ultimate Fantastic Four books that I've read. But I just sort of think well, take Mr. Fantastic out, and what do the rest of them do? You know, it might be interesting.
Yeah,
I'm going to say mine.
Go on,
save me.
Deadpool.
Fair enough.
Fuck him.
Just kill it.
Yeah, done. Job done with him.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy for that character to pop up every once in a while, and I just think it should be a kind of a bit like Lobo, that standalone titles that are self-inclusive.
Yeah, it shouldn't work.
When you put them in the rest of the universe, it doesn't really work.
I'd like to see some more people do what like Rick Remender did, like with the Uncanny X-Force with him.
Yeah, I read the first couple of issues out this again this week actually.
As well as all the jokes, and he's still kind of funny in it. But there's like, okay, this is a different flavour of book. So yeah.
Vince,
it's already done. I'd say Wolverine.
Oh, you animal.
They have murdered any fucking... Part of the reason that character was so strong was the mystery. The moment they revealed it, Superman lost his powers, essentially, as far as I'm concerned. And I loved that. I just want to state this. I fucking loved that character when I was a kid. He was my favourite. I drew him over and over everywhere. And just like, it just became Wolverine and the X-Men. It just became Wolverine in this, Wolverine in that. Oh, he doesn't. He was never wearing his mask anymore, which, to be honest, is the coolest. One of the coolest things about him, because that mask is.
I remember reading him before you knew what he looked like, and then when he took his hat off, it looked like his hair was part of his.
Yeah. Exactly.
I just thought that all about.
His hair fits into his mask. What? Yeah, it may be controversial, but I mean, I say that, and they killed him off for a couple of years ago, didn't they? For a little bit.
I tell you, Storm's like Dolly Dimple perfect at the moment. She can't do anything wrong. She's even though she just makes it rain, she appears to be undefeated.
Yeah,
she really fucks me.
How does she become like an alpha level?
Omega level, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So like Charles Xavier's kind of like can do the whole psychic thing to anyone in the world. That's kind of fucking well powerful.
Well, if you can grow someone's carrots for them in the desert, then you obviously Omega level. Yeah. She's sort of Miss Perfect as well. She's a bit up her own backside.
I like carrots.
Yeah. I like carrots too. Yeah. Who hasn't said? Dan, have you said? Yeah.
I would go back to the old saying of like only Bucky stays dead in comics. I would go back and like, sorry, Winter Soldier, Bucky, you're dead. That's
good one, like that.
You're not coming back, because that axiom has got to be made right. The world, it's not just me, but the world kind of went out of balance when they brought.
Oh, and should have happened to Gwen as well. Gwen was the other one, wasn't she?
Yeah. It's just kind of defining moments in characters' backstories and lives, and then they're like, "Oh no, actually, we're back now." So, okay, it's a bit weird. They brought Uncle Ben back, thank God. Well, at least I don't know if they have.
Just give him a chance.
Don't give him ideas. Let's not put that idea out into the world.
Yeah.
Uncle Ben watch.
I hated that when Spider-Man and like, oh yeah, my mum and dad were like spies.
Oh fuck all that.
Why you don't need any of that?
Yeah.
It doesn't. Just absolutely muddies the water. Just get rid of it.
Hashtag Frank lives. By the way, I'm starting that hashtag now.
Frank lives.
Well, Frank Sinatra. Frankie Howard?
Castle, baby. He's still out there. He's coming back.
Castle, yeah.
Yes, so back to Big Game. We are thoroughly enjoying it. And, like, some of you out there, just give it a shot. Because it's, despite what you whatever your feelings on the comics, whatever, this issue 1 is good comics. That's the bottom line is it's just well made. Possibly
it's gripping as well, man. It keeps you reading it. Because I was saying this before, often if I'm going to read a comic to talk about, I'll have a notebook open with me and jot a few things down. I couldn't put this one down.
Yeah.
I just kept reading it.
Also, without a doubt, I think the facial model for Wesley Gibson in this book is Stephen Lang.
I have to look.
Who's Stephen Lang?
Stephen Lang in Avatar, he's like the blind guy from the film Don't Breathe.
I know the dude. Yeah.
Hard ass. Yeah. There's certain shots, especially the last panel in the book. Whenever you see him, he's got he looks like a younger version of that actor.
Oh, I thought he looked a bit like Luke Goss in one panel.
A little.
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah. So Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you know, well done. This was a lot better than
Well done, Mark.
Yeah, well done, Mark. You should keep making comics, young man.
Well done, you.
Actually, a promising future ahead.
We're Miller Marks on here, though. It speaks to us, doesn't it? You know, that love of sort of adventures and superheroes and you know, action and stuff. Yeah.
Speaking of other comics, and comics topics in general. Tony, you had a question, didn't you?
Oh yeah, so I posed this to you guys already on the internet, but to give you a chance to think about it, and I'll send it to Sam as well. So here's where the question comes from. Very briefly, is I did a podcast with Eamon where we talked about Starbeast. Now, Starbeast is the Pat Mills, Dave Gibbons comic that came out in like the 80s and is now going to be this Christmas, on the run up to Christmas special with David Tennant. And what it's about is the two kids in a northern town discover a fluffy creature who looks all cuddly, but he's actually a fucking maniac, psychopathic sort of space creature sort of thing. And the people who are hunting him are these sort of insectoid things with grabby tongues and stuff who look like villains, but are in fact the police, the good guys. And we reached out to Pat, and Pat very kindly sent us a load of notes about it that he had. But one thing he did say is he said stereotypes always need questioning in a story, which I find is really interesting. And there's a couple of sort of it really got me thinking about it beyond even the podcast we did, you know. And we laugh about stuff. We laugh about those sort of stereotypes. If you remember a couple of years ago, we would get sent pictures through, you know, promo for comics, and it would always be something like when Buffy meets the Sweeney and shit like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just like playing on that boring stereotype. Why can't it just be its own comic and be interesting and be about this, you know? And a couple of things came to mind as I was sort of thinking about it. And one is that stereotypes have changed, sometimes for the good and sometimes for the worse, as the world sort of turns. And also, when you're reading a comic that is purely about a typical cliche of a person, it makes the story predictable. Totally. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, and so should we pose it to the guest first? So Sam, what did you think about that? Did you have any thoughts about it? Because I know you're working in comics. Yours are sort of kid friendly. So sometimes you have to lean a little bit into a stereotype. I'm going to say to you, or
I'm going to say like I don't think they're inherently bad necessarily. Like sometimes there are bad stereotypes obviously, but in terms of storytelling and things like that, they can help you in kind of, like you say, having a shortcut to a particular character trait or something like that. So like in my work, for example, I've got a kid who's like a science whiz kind of thing. So he's got a stereotypical kind of science kid design to him. Like he's got a white lab coat and things. He's got big glasses, and it's just like, I kind of use that as a way to identify. This is an easier way to identify what this kid's about. I'm just trying to think of the other questions that you sent over, to be honest.
I mean, the thing is, like, I think the visual language that we use in comics changes as per the world changes, society changes, politics changes. So, for example, just the most obvious and simple version of that is the fact that, you know, in the 60s or the 50s, if you had someone turn up in a comic all in black, they'd be a villain, wouldn't they? You know, but these days, they're more likely to be sort of a bad boy loner good guy, you know? These days, I think. So the stereotypes have changed a bit like that. I mean, if you put, you know, Nick Fury in a comic in the 50s, he'd have been a bad guy, wouldn't he? Because he's got that sort of eye patch thing going on, you know.
Yeah, chomping a cigar.
Yeah, exactly. If you put him in a spaghetti western, he'd be the bad guy, wouldn't he? You know. So I think the world has changed a bit around it.
You could also use it to subvert expectations as well. So you can kind of queue up someone as a stereotypical kind of particular character, and then have them be the complete opposite.
I think that's what Pat's talking about. I think he's saying you have to subvert expectations because it makes the story more interesting. It doesn't have to necessarily be a massive story beat as he worked it, but I think it also makes the person more memorable. Yeah.
Do you think you have to be a bit more careful if you're writing kid stories with stereotypes and subverting? I mean, you wouldn't want to go into like a My Little Pony film and it's all a bit about friendship and actually subverted the topic. It's actually about war or something. That's quite a lash from one to the other.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean?
I understand, yeah.
But I think certain cliches have been overused. So, we always, when stuff like martial law and The Boys and, Watchmen came out, they were subverting the hero genre, weren't they? They were subverting the superhero genre into being something where these people are actually quite fucking dark now. But that seemingly is done every other week now in a comic you open.
Yeah, I've made this point before, but there's only so much deconstruction and subversion you can do before you've we fucking run out of stuff to do. You need to kind of get back on and start getting down to the nitty gritty of making new stuff. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Original, fresh material that maybe someone down the line can just rip apart. But kind of constantly having stuff subverted and kind of we weren't expecting that, and it's kind of afterwards, fucking hell, man, just tell a straight story.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I think primarily everything's in the craft, but I think especially, this is very visual in the sort of films you watch, the horror genre, where Winnie the Pooh's now a fucking serial killer, the Banana Splits are serial killers. We seem to just be going through that constantly. And I think comics does the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's become the kind of a lot of the big twos outputs, and this is a massive broad stroke here. Is that this become the stereotypical for me and a lot of readers? I think sort of like you're going to get the same stuff, you're going to get the same characters. You even like CBR has said about the political messaging of comics nowadays is just all one way, and it's like straw man stuff. It's just like this again? Are we going to get another fucking preach? I'm going to pay £5 for a fucking
CBR saying it, something.
Yeah. I think there's a lack of nuance and subtlety. I think to a lot of certainly
we're educated readers now as well.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to subverting characters, some of the strongest ones is when you're reading it, and it just kind of happens, and it subversion. In some ways, should surprise. That's the point of it, And so, rather than people going, "Oh, you should read this because this person," they give away the game too much, and they make a big song and dance and like create a whole big firework event of like, "Oh, this isn't your normal sort of character," and they do a different spin on it. But for me, it works better if I'm in a story and I certainly think a character is going to be one way, and then the story spins it on its head, and I'm like, and then. But then that also
don't do it cheaply though. That's the thing as well.
Yeah, don't do it. If you handle it right, it does that wonderful thing that great sort of fiction does. It makes the reader question things, not to the point of like, oh, I'm going to question my very existence, but just to the point of like, oh, why did I think that person was that way when they were actually this other thing?
Yeah.
It provokes discussion and questions, which is a very powerful thing that the comics can do. As well as like it can just be cool with certain characters, but it could lead to sort of just bigger thoughts and getting someone to sort of second guess themselves about the way they think about a certain type of person. Is a major fucking thing to do,
and it's something good comics have done for many years.
Totally. Because it's like you've had that with the Green Arrow and Green Lantern stuff when they would be presenting both sides of an argument in the topic.
The line about you look after the blue man and the the green alien, but you never look after the black man, and that's still one of the greatest moments ever.
But rather than sort of like you have this kind of discussion within the pages, trying to be even-handed and steel-manning the arguments for both sides of a particular argument, rather than just preaching one side. And that leaves you none the wiser or better prepared to kind of argue a point. Like if I said, like this opinion is right, and then didn't address any of the kind of concerns or the negative points of it, it's like if you go into the world espousing that, and the first time someone kind of challenges them, and it's like, oh, I've got nothing. I hadn't really considered it.
I think you've got to put yourself out there as well, Dan. I think you've really got to put yourself out there to subvert and twist a stereotype and a cliche. And I think we need to get past this whole thing about, oh, he's written about a Nazi, therefore he's a Nazi, which seems to fucking go on everywhere.
It's fucking juvenile.
Yeah.
There's also some people will say, oh, I'm subverting things, because you're seeing it from this perspective. I don't necessarily think that works. Because if you put someone in the perspective of the person you're supposed to be subverting, you're giving them a direction. I think it's more powerful when you let the reader make a decision for themselves and then you twist that on them. Do you know what I mean? Because if you're, I'm subverting this character because we're seeing it from that side, that's not really how it works. I think subversion plays on, I've got an opinion of what you are. Holy shit, I was wrong. What?
Yeah.
So it's the other way.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think testing and not leading the right. Look, going back to Miller's work, he does it all the time. Where you go, oh right, I
was expecting this, and then it's not
and that's what Pat does in that story. You'll think, oh, cuddly, no.
It's like sometimes, even when these villains will do these huge, they're painted as and we're talking galaxy ending sort of villains, and they're doing these horrible things, but it can take one bit of dialogue or when you get a villain to sort of, if they get someone to say, I see where they're coming from, that's strong, and what I mean by that is, I don't mean, oh right, the villain's right,
makes them understandable, but they have to have a reason. Raison d'etre.
The Thanos argument, isn't it? Right. It's sort of okay.
My thing is, you're presented with a problem, and you're defined by how you tackle that problem. So say, to define the villain and the hero, my street is strewn with rubbish, so I'm going to go out in a bin liner and I'm going to collect all the rubbish. The evil approach is, and when I see someone dropping rubbish, I'm going to smash them over with a bat. You know what I mean? It's the wrong way.
I'm making notes of this.
Do you know what I mean? It's the wrong way of approaching it. So if you want to use that Thanos method, it's there's not enough resources in the universe. I'll cut down the number of people.
Yeah.
Rather than I'll create more resources for people because that's well within my remit. But some people are pointing out, it's that's the flaw. That's why he's the villain, because he sees this problem, but he's approaching it from the wrong way and tackling it incorrectly,
which is what a lot of people do in the world anyway.
And the thing, you're right, man, and that's the real world implications of what we're talking about here. Is the thing is, people in the real world, I mean, Tony Blair was probably quite a charismatic politician, but he appears to have started a war for no reason. If you read the papers, people, the real villains in the world are often smiling, fucking, my neighbour was all right. He seemed like a really, really good-looking, nice bloke. Oh no, he'll be murdering people.
He was Fred West.
Yeah, exactly. There's that sort of thing. I don't want to lag on about Tony Blair because there's other politicians out there who are smiling at you, shaking your hand. But I think that's important. It's the real world implications that we see within the comic book page, and everyone who, con men, a lot of con men are dirty fuckers, but they're probably quite charming people as well.
Yeah, that's how they trade, man. There's so many times I've seen people getting taken in by stuff. And I said, mate, why do you do that?
It's like me and you and our OnlyFans habit, Dan. You know what I mean?
Also, the bin man butcher.
Bin man butcher.
I had a colleague, and she was buying a stereo, a pair of speakers, and they were meeting them in a McDonald's drive-thru at 11 at night. And she was telling me this story, and he said, "Look, you'll get in the car, and I'll show you the speakers." And she was like, "Oh, where'd you get these from?" I was like, "Oh, don't ask." And she was sort of like, "Okay." And I was like, "So let me do. You met a stranger at a car park at 11 p.m. in a McDonald's car park and got in the back of their car." And she kind of paused for a moment and go, "Yeah, that probably wasn't a good idea." But yeah, you think?
Did I tell you about when I bought my new car? I went in I told you this story. I mean, I went in this. The lady was showing me in the car showroom. She was showing me all the bits, and she was showing me this how you plug your phone in to get the stereo on and stuff. And I went, "Has it got a CD player?" And she went, "No."
Just trolling her. It's kind of but it's strange. Generally, I was thinking about stereotypes and it's a tool we all use, but is there a positive to it? There's definitely a negative, because you can kind of write people off on a stereotype you've got, but you have them as it's a useful kind of shorthand tool for sort of oh fuck me, there's a geezer driving around in a white van offering sweets to kids. I know.
Yeah, nonsense.
Stereotype that.
Yeah. I think they're usable and not usable. I think sometimes you've got to apply yourself to like twisting the reader's perceptions of what's happening, and sometimes they're a nice little quick shortcut. Perhaps that scale changes when we're doing kids comics, like you say, Sam. You know, there's a sliding scale of what needs to be done and needs to be done on a page quickly sometimes. So you have to reduce it to a stereotype. And that's what comics is, though, isn't it? Comics is a visual language, so it's got to be done sometimes. I think, you know.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to the original sort of question anyway, which was, you know, the stereotypes always need questioning, and you know, you can question them, even if the answer you get to is the stereotype in this instance is
working
spot on for the story.
Yeah,
you know, you don't always have to kind of go against the grain just for the sake of it, because you know it's always got to be in service of the story or the character.
Yeah. Speaking of stereotypes, I literally just got a WhatsApp message from John Ottaway, and it's a video. I'm not going to open that.
No, it's probably for the best.
Love you, John.
Slinging a roll of carpet into a lay-by.
John's taking someone to the train station again, isn't he? Yellowstone joke for you.
Yeah. Nice one.
Thank you.
Yeah, an interesting question. I think I'm going to keep thinking about that one.
Yeah, it's a nice one to apply when you're writing or, you know, creating a comic, isn't it? I think it's one of those questions you should ask yourself when you're doing something.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Because it could be a powerful sort of storytelling tool. Yeah. I think. Speaking of storytelling, though.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah. Thanks, Pat. Speaking
of the show.
If everyone's a friend of this show, why would they not be?
Exactly.
What was that noise, Dan?
There is enemies, you know that.
Yeah.
If you're on Substack, get on Pat's Substack.
Oh, it's great, isn't it?
His page turner series is like a treasure trove of how to make comics. It's really, I've not read it all yet, but
there's a Charlie's Walker one came out this morning. I was just reading it actually. Yeah, really good one. Yeah,
he was posting up some pages, interior pages of the Vampire Night.
Oh, how good was that?
Fucking hell, yeah. It's kind of like, well, I want this book twice. Once where it's just pencils and once where it's finished, because it's fucking amazing. I can see why the guy takes so long doing these pages, because they're just unreal.
Yeah. And I think I'm okay to say this, coming soon to Global Comics.
Hey, there you go.
There you go.
Another first.
Global
Comics absolutely flying. That app is just the biz.
Yeah. Who are we talking about? Well, go back a couple of episodes and you'll find out.
Yeah.
Actually, episode 417. There you go.
Global Comics with an X.
Yeah. Oh, do you remember ComX?
Yeah.
The UK publisher.
I sent them a pitch.
Did you
back
really?
in the day? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
ComX. I better not type that on the browser. I don't know what I get.
Maybe that was the problem.
Yeah.
They had some
Razorjack.
Yeah.
Do you
some...
remember Electric Comics?
Yeah, Electric. We did a big thing on them. We had prizes and everything.
Yeah.
Where did they go?
We're still here.
I don't know.
God.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I dare not speak.
That was an app, wasn't it? I had it on my iPad.
It was an app.
It's a good little app. And then
there was like a couple of good titles on there that were kind of specific. But I don't know what's happened to those comics. Are they just in the ether now, or
I don't know. One was by. Oh, I'm trying to think now. Nicola, who does Teen Titans at the moment? It was Wonder Womanized.
Stott? No.
Oh, I can't remember now. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
Is it Nicola Stott?
No, it wasn't. No, it was before Nicola started, really. But yeah. Okay, sorry.
But back to storytelling. Sam.
Yeah.
How has your storytelling and comic making journey been since we last spoke to you, my friend?
100 episodes since we last spoke.
100 episodes. And the comics marketplace, publishing, and everything in between has changed quite a bit. So from your perspective, how has it all been?
Because you've been doing some DUI stuff and other stuff, haven't you?
Yeah. So I've done a couple of contributions to some smaller projects here and there. But in terms of my main comic stories, I've made a lot of progress, but I've also made no progress at all based on because the last time I spoke to you guys, I was working on Splorers issue 1, and I'm still working on Splorers issue 1. But I say still, what I've actually done is I've rewritten it.
Okay.
So I'll just quickly go through the background of it. So I finished issue 1, or the original issue 1, put that out a couple of years ago. that went on to Comic House and things like that. And whilst I was getting good feedback from people saying they enjoyed it, I got friends with kids who were looking forward to the next issue and things. I cracked on with writing issue 2, and then I actually got to the end of inking. I think I did about 20 pages or 24 pages for issue 2, and I started getting a bit cold feet, and I weren't sure why, and I kind of shelved the project for a while. And and when I went to Thought Bubble last year, I think it was, I always stop around Mark Jackson's table because he's a really nice guy, and he's always got time for a chat. And
I kind of see your comics are in almost the same area somehow a bit as well. Yeah,
I think so. Kind of, all age kind of area, I guess. His style is very different to mine, though, to be fair. But I was talking to him about so his series Spoo Kids. He's done 3 issues now, I think, or 4 issues, and that is a series that he originally did in issue 1 and then restarted the series. So I was just talking to him about that and just saying, "Oh, how come you did that?" And he was like, "Well, I was looking back on issue 1 whilst I was working issue 2, and it wasn't kind of as snappy as I wanted it to be. So he wanted it to be a bit more kind of condensed, kind of single page comic gag type thing." So he just went back and redid the whole thing, and I was like, "Oh, you can do that. Even though you've published something, you can just go, oh, actually, no, scrap that. I'm just going to start again." And that kind of, I went away, and it kind of gave me permission in a weird way. That's a weird way of saying it, but I allowed myself to sort of say, well, if I were to start again, what would I do differently? Because the issues I had with what I'd done was the story wasn't kind of getting going as fast as I wanted it to. I had some issues with the art, like the character models were completely off, like they weren't consistent at all, and that wasn't even a case of just looking back and saying, "Oh, I've developed as an artist." That's not what happened at all. It was just like, no, objectively, this is not good. So, with that in mind, I basically just sort of took the core story beats, which I had no problem with, and just kind of allowed myself to work with that as a fresh idea. And I feel like where I am now, it's setting up the story a lot better because it's focused on the 3 core characters, which are the main focus of the story is this relationship between the brother and sister. And there wasn't much of that in the original issue 1, whereas this time it's a lot more focused on that and the 3 core characters. So that's where I am now. I'm working on getting that issue finished. That probably won't be finished until September at the earliest, I guess, just because I'm going on holiday next week and I'm not doing any work on my holiday. So that's where I currently am.
Okay, man. It's a brave move to do that. Yeah,
totally.
Did it take a lot of thinking about that, or did you think, "Oh, I'll just do another project," or these sort of things come into your head, I guess?
Yeah, I did shelve it for about 6 months, I think, where I just kind of said, right, I'm done with it.
It takes a lot of guts to go back to it. Yeah, I was going to say, it's almost like you don't want to. I guess in a way, you didn't really want to look at it for a period of time, did you? Or
no, that was it.
Steel yourself to go back to it almost.
Yeah. It was like a real, it took a lot of effort to even think about it, and it did start feeling like a drag. And and you guys have said before on the podcast many times, like, if you're not enjoying it, why do it? And that's where it was. It was that kind of thing that kind of solidified it in my head. I was like, well, I'm not enjoying spending the time doing this, so I'll just go work on other things where I do enjoy working on other little projects. And then when I started thinking about what would I do if I started again, and I kind of got that enjoyment back because I started thinking a bit more of like, oh, I'm not bound by the constraints that I'd given myself. And it just gave me a bit of freedom to think a bit more creatively, which was a bit more exciting.
What you've done there is you've massively taken a walk around the block when you're at work, haven't you? You know, you've allowed it. You know, to sometimes doing something different just allows you to rethink and come up with ideas. You know, even in my work day, if I take a walk around the little green outside my office, I always come up with, oh, all right, I missed this, or I can do this. You know? And you just done a massive version of that, really.
Yeah, exactly. Which, you know, it does suck because it does mean that I've kind of essentially wasted a couple of years of my life working on this other comic. But I'm trying to put that out of my head and think there's a reason for it. And, you know, we remember the bad times as well.
Sometimes we're too hard on ourselves, don't we? And we remember the hard times compared to the good times. You know, I think sometimes you need to remember that you did have great fun creating that comic. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's all part of the journey, isn't it? To, you know, it's the destination, isn't it? And if you've gotten to a point where you're enjoying it again, do you know what I mean? Where it's that speaks volumes, isn't it? Because you don't want to be, no one wants to be working on anything or plugging a project that they're just not. I mean, Dan, if you were, I mean, I don't know how you've managed to do Vanguard this long.
Yeah,
but
you
clearly,
me, mate.
But it's methamphetamines. No, but if you weren't enjoying it, would you call it a day?
Jack in, definitely. Yeah, without doubt.
Could you do that? Could you walk away, or would you have to like finish it? You know,
I'd have to finish it.
Yeah,
but if you're not getting out of it what you want to get out of it, and you're not making loads of money out of it, it's kind of like, man, just change it up. It's fucking life's too short to be spending loads of time on stuff you don't.
I mean, in the period you've done it, you must have had a few moments where you've thought, "Oh, this is hard work today."
Yeah.
How'd you shake that off, do you think?
There's times where I've like struggled to get it done. It's just like just get my head down and do it. But I have the breaks between issues, and the story, like I've had it changing all over the place, and it moves quite quickly. So I always try and think, well, what I'd like to do and what would be fun to do and fun to read, and I make that comic that I want to make and want to read.
Do you have an overall arc already predefined, or do you have like a vague, like where you got an end point, but
there's like a bunch of bullet points on like a document where it's like, right, I've got to do this is hit into that, that's hit into that, so I kind of roughly know where everything's going. And sometimes it changes a little, things get changed because the story changes during the telling, but I kind of know where I'm going and know where it's going to end. So I could, one of those things, like I could just blow this wide open and have it going for the rest of my life, but it's like, no, I want this to end, so this is a good point, and that's where it's going to go.
Plus you've built up a massive audience around that, man, and that, I think part of that is that keeps you going a bit, doesn't it, as well?
Like I really don't want to let people down, like you start telling the story and then you just fuck off. And
do you think part of it is a work? Do you think part of it is a work ethic then?
I would, for me, definitely.
Yeah,
it's a work ethic. I can't.
This is a bit
inconceivable.
Like that.
I couldn't fucking let people down.
Yeah, but this is a bit like that. Doing this, I love this podcast. We all talk about it. You know, when we're having a shit week, it fucking cheers us up. We love it
totally. Yeah.
But we know that we've got to look at stuff ready and prepare stuff ready and chat to each other ready. You know, I spend a couple of hours a week thinking of the comics I'm going to talk about. You know, coming up with the, you know, we all come up with the, why don't we talk about this or what about this guest? You know, there's a lot of work goes into these, but you know, I'm sure there's been moments where we're like, oh fucking hell, I'm going to read for tomorrow's episode, but we do it, don't we? You know.
Yeah. Man, there's been times I've been stuck on like coming up to the weekend. I've got nothing. I've read a load of titles and nothing's.
You've said that to us a couple of times recently, Dan. And
loads of times. Yeah.
Like, magically, something has appeared, really, isn't it? I think that's what the magic of it. It sort of does. It just does seem to happen like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think with any sort of creative endeavor as well, there's always the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs of it. You know, even if people sort of say, "Oh, I love it. I love every moment of it." I would sort of say, I would say. Yes, you love it. You cannot say you love every moment of it because sometimes it's hard fucking work and you pulling your hair out and it's just nothing's going right. The words aren't right on the page. The ink isn't right on the page. Nothing's going right.
Maybe the reaction to it isn't right sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, Sam. I've got my production schedule. Like I know when stuff has to be done at a certain time to get pages up, and if certain marks aren't hitting, I'm like, fucking hell, I'm gonna have to pull my finger out to get this done. And it's,
oh god, no! I don't have a schedule at all. That might be part of the problem. But I mean, to be honest, mine's kind of it's purely because you know I've got two small kids, and you know I can't guarantee how long on a daily basis I'll have to work on comics. You know, on a good day, I'll get a good time of like between 8 and 10 maybe, and then on a bad day, the kids won't sleep till 9 o'clock, and then
we need to do more. We need to do more drink and draws, don't we, Sam? Because you always get quite a lot done during them, as I understand it.
Yeah, I'm very productive on drink and draws. So yeah, once a week that'd be good. Thanks.
I mean, it can also be you've got small kids, if they kind of wake up in the middle of the night and you got to sit with them for an hour or two, they can fuck you for the next day because you got low energy, and then suddenly I've got to put in a day's work, all the other stuff. Then I've got to get back onto making it quick and even.
I find a lot of what I do, I'm more productive early because I work like a 12, 14 hour day. If I get in early and I go for a run and then I'll do some comic stuff, I find that is a more productive period because when you get home sometimes, man, you're shredded, aren't you? You can't, you're done for the day, aren't you? Your brain's like porridge, I
think that's very subjective to like whatever kind of creator you are when
I think so.
When you come alive to kind of get your shit done. I'm thinking a bit like you two, like early morning is my peak time.
Yeah, because we're always talking on the WhatsApp, and then like this morning, Vince went, "I've just got up."
Yeah,
it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
There's times I've been sending messages to you guys. Oh fucking hell! It's like 5 a.m. T's usually up.
Yeah. There ain't no fucking way I'm going to be up. Actually,
you told me you get up about 4 a.m. and then you go home.
Well, that's a different discussion to
it. Yeah, I have considered doing like the get up an hour earlier, but
Strotty's doing it, isn't he?
Yeah, it's working out for him.
I definitely think it'd work for me, but I've got a 3-year-old who still doesn't sleep through the night. So
okay,
almost every night we have a shit night's sleep. So
this got to kind of like work through that, and when they get older and their sleep pattern kind of hopefully changes, just change accordingly. It's hats off to Matt because he's doing that. Matt Schrott is doing the wake up an hour early, and
but it's finding a routine that works for you in any way, shape, or form, isn't it? Some people are night owls. Some people are better in the early morning.
I get a bit addicted to the routine as well. I look at my watch and think, right, at 6:15, I should be walking down to the coffee shop now in order to, it's like that. I'm a little bit addictive around that sort of thing.
Mate, fucking you and me all over. Like that's the times. Like I've got to leave for work. Like 5 minutes. Look at the clock. 4 minutes. I've got to go. Everything's going. Everything's hitting the marks.
Yeah.
So when trains are cancelled, I'm like, you fucking thing.
It really throws me off. I smash people up on the platform.
Kick some old deer on the tracks.
Dan, do you find working digitally kind of helps mix? When you've got like little pockets of time throughout the day, do you think working digitally helps?
Oh yeah, for me, it makes stuff so easy, like a lot quicker. Just I can quickly bang it on, then quickly do something, rather than like you got ink. It's like I'll get all the shit out, get set up. Yeah, and where's that pen gone? And
that's something I'm looking into as well, just because I do like working traditionally. I
think everyone does, don't they? I think. Yeah. Most people.
But it's it's so tiring. Like you've got to have your stuff with you, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, right? Okay. So and I've been pondering whether to sort of look into getting an iPad or something like that, and because everyone I speak to absolutely loves their iPad and thinks it's the best thing for their process. But what I don't want to do is fork out a load of cash and then find out that it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I honestly was spending a lot of time looking into it and talking to people and having a go at stuff. I was like, I'm really not sure about this. But once I started working a bit and got into my workflow, the idea of going back now is fucking so alien. I just like it's integral now. So, oh my God, I'm on that all the time. It's so good.
We hang on to that process that we're used to, don't we? Because we think that our art is now that in a way, don't we? I suppose.
But whenever I've gone back to pencils and pens and stuff, I'd love it as well. It's like I really missed.
It's like a holiday.
Missed this part of the process. It's brilliant. Yeah. It's just
I have this weird thing as well where when I'm working on comic pages, rather than my sketchbook, I ink differently.
Okay.
And it's something I need to sort of sort my shit out really, because I prefer my inking style in my sketchbooks. Like it's a bit rougher, but it's not like sketchy. Yeah, but it's not like scribbly loose. It's still fairly tight. But and then when I get to comic page, I don't know if it's something to do with I've because I'm using Bristol board and I think this is expensive paper, so I need to get it right.
Been a bit too precious about it, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So I'm trying to think of, like an iPad's potentially one of those things where, because you've got the endless ability to undo, the sort of
you can just go for it.
Yeah, you can just go for it and not really care. But the other thing I'm tempted to do is just scrap the Bristol board and just ink on, cheap printer paper.
Yeah,
and then try and remove some of that kind of mental. This has to be a specific way because it's, special paper or whatever.
Well, I used to do it on I bought slightly better, like a higher GSM paper that would hold the ink a little better, and just was doing pencils and inks on one page and then scanning them in and combining it all into one thing rather than having here's all the work on one page. That process wasn't kind of doing it for me, which I know it's not the same for every artist where everyone does it a bit sort of different. Simon Russell came up with something he remarked on one of my Vanguard pages, and I sent it to you guys about is this my style locked in with Vanguard? And
particular to that project, is that what he's meaning?
I think so, because there's times I've worked in other stuff, like I've got the stuff coming up for DEY3 where I've done it completely different, and it's the Vanguard stuff seems to be like it's a process I know how to get done, banging it out so I can get these pages out and done and up. But
I think the nature of you guys is because you're a graphic designer, Sam, as well.
Sort of, yeah. Sort of.
So the thing I noticed about graphic designer artists, because there's a lot of you guys out there, aren't they? Comic artists, they also their day job seems to be graphic design. It's just so tidy and every corner's perfect and everything's laid out perfectly. It's almost like sometimes it's worth letting that go a bit and just being a bit more chaotic on a page, do you think? And what about you, V? You've not really said about this. What do you think?
What, the relationship of being a designer? But
also I think sometimes you've got to let yourself go a little bit.
Let the dog off the leash, as it were, and just kind of
in your work is like everything's got to be tight and down to that line and tidy.
I think some of the and certainly with pencil sketches, the work has just been sort of more enjoyable and it's a bit freer. Do you know what I mean? Where you just let go, or you just because the problem I have as well is sometimes in my brain I'm focusing too hard on an end product that I can't possibly achieve because in my head it looks like someone else has done it. So when it's like, fuck, when I started this drawing of, I don't know, Snake Plissken from Escape from New York, it looked a certain way and I can't draw it like this. This sucks. I suck. All of that shit. Whereas sometimes I'm like, I'm just going to fucking draw a Nosferatu vampire. Scribble, scribble, scribble.
Yeah.
That looks pretty cool. I'm quite happy with that.
A bit more sort of instinctual, you think?
I think when you sort of loosen up, it really does help to sort of just to take the seatbelt off sometimes. I don't know. I don't know what
some of the favorite pieces I've done are just random sketches that I just kind of, I felt the inspiration to do it, and then it's like, oh, there we go, it's done, and it's really,
it's good for your mental well-being as well. I'm guessing that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, letting it go.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think everyone's crippled. Every artist is crippled with you're your worst self-critic.
Not everything has to be perfect.
I find the if you start chasing that, I want everything to be absolutely clean and perfect. There's going to be no faults. That's a fucking thing. You'll never succeed at that.
Right.
It's like you can never achieve it because there's always something else you could have done better. You could have make it cleaner. You could have make it smoother. You could have made it more polished.
A reason to beat yourself up, I think.
But you just at some point you kind of just got to, it is what it is. But
I mean, when I made Black, like that, the whole thing about that was just fucking go see what happens.
Yeah,
there was absolutely there was no writing beforehand. There was no script. It was just like let's see what the pen does. Let's see what I create from page to page and see what happens, and then worry about it afterwards. Yes, that's a fucking chaotic way to do it, but I just was like, just go for it. Let's try it.
We haven't got an editor at Marvel over our shoulders. Yeah. We can do that, can't we? That's the thing.
Your chaos is different to say giving a crayon to a 5-year-old's chaos drawing. Do you know what I mean? There's a certain amount of craft and discipline that you're kind of bringing that you can develop these pages and images to make sense sequentially and write a story into them. Even though you're doing that, you know what I mean? So
it's interesting when you work like that sometimes, and you do a lot looser and with like maybe less line, maybe less texture or less ink. But as it goes on, if you find sometimes there is that muscle memory that you look at a page, and to be honest, you've done it loose, you've done it fast and loose, and it's done. But there's a little thing in your brain that sort of goes, why don't you just add a bit of cross hatching on that bit? Maybe it's that's the dangerous part, when you just want to noodle a little bit more.
The state of your mind when you're drawing is a very interesting thing as well, isn't it? You know, the way it affects what you're doing and how well you do it and how detailed you do it and everything. You know, there's all these different factors that play in, which advocates why I only draw when I'm drunk.
One other thing I do if I'm doing sequential pages and I start bringing in a new element, it's like, right, this is to be replicated on every page I do now. I can't
that's
have
the thing
one
with
fucking
you,
page super detailed, and it's like, oh fuck me, now I've got to do this for every fucking panel.
Yeah, which I think is maybe coming back to what Simon said there. You've got to be locked in around that because you've got models, you've got what the reader's used to, you've got the same format per page, isn't it? You know. Yeah.
Maybe that's why I always find it hard when people digital paint their comics, because the art of digital painting is a kind of you just work and it comes together. Yeah. Like the process how you get there for me is like different from one thing to the next. So the idea of doing sequential images where you're trying to get all these panels to look the same page after page, it's like an alchemy to me. I really don't know how you achieve that.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff, guys. Yeah.
See, we're capable of interesting stuff sometimes. Thank you, Sam, for bringing that out of us. No,
back to boobs.
Yeah, obviously, we're looking forward to seeing what you got in store, Sam, because
it's looking great on the drink and draws. Us, and it looks great, mate. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. If it's not out like by the time Thought Bubble comes round, feel free to boot my ass on any social media that I'm on.
Dangerous words.
But I'll put out some revenge porn.
I'll start doing that.
I don't know what that is.
I've got that gif of Chris Kringle from Miracle on 34th Street when he's fucking
with the whip. Yeah.
I send that to people.
which is it's such a well-meaning image, but the way Dan uses it, he uses it for great evil.
That's what makes it even better.
Oh dear! Speaking of better, I mean, this has been
great evil.
We could talk about comics and all angles of comics and just work in general for hours and hours, but we don't have hours and hours. But what we do have is some shout outs. What shout outs have we got this week, gents?
I've got a few actually. So start off with is Johnny Cannon's The United going underground. Hits Kickstarter this Friday. If you're listening to this on the week of release, I've read it. It's really, genuinely, really good. Plus, listen out when it drops. It will coincide with a Never on Anything episode where me and Al absolutely grill him. We do accuse him of killing himself in a comic, which made me laugh because we got that back from him before we got to it. Are you going to Permanent Damage on the 26th of August in Portland, in America? Then go over and say hi to Falpy and Eddie at the Strangers Table. Are you going to be at SPX or at the Baltimore Comic Con in the first weekend of September in Bethesda and Baltimore? Me, Falpy, Cliff, Strotty, and Sam Arthurs from Nobrow will be there. Come and find us. I'll be on the Nobrow table at the SPX. And I'll be wandering around at Baltimore on the Friday. Nice is coming up on the first weekend of September too. So that weekend there's fucking loads going on. I know what's going on with the world, but there's loads going on that weekend. I would love to go to Nice, but I'm in America, so I can't do it. But it's there's a lot of our buddies, our chums who are going to be there. The Reckless Boys that have a table there. Sarah Webb, I think it's her first experience tabling, which we'll be asking her about hopefully at some point soon. Newcastle Zine Fair is next Saturday at the Saturday the 5th of August. Our buddy Ben Clark's going to be there. Go along if you're there. Say hello to him from us. Don't forget another convention. Don't forget that Andrew Hempel is offering free small press tables to listeners at the Bridlington Comic Con on the 10th of September. Also the same week as SPX, sadly, so I won't be going there. But what an opportunity. Putting the comic back in Comic Con is what he's saying. So I think it's a great opportunity. I know a couple of our people here. Ian's going to be at it, a few other people in Ashcroft.
I was hoping after last year, I was like, right, next year I'm going to do it. But this year it falls on my son's birthday. So
okay, that's a shame. Yeah. You've heard me mention it before, but those free-loving, sexy bastards are back with Asteroid Belters Summer Slammed. The not safe for work boobs and butts in a sci-fi action anthology. It's now on Kickstarter. again, absolutely fucking storming it. I've backed it. This is hilarious comics. If it was just sex, I would probably read it. I just wouldn't tell you about it. But this is actually also really funny and very clever and really well drawn and told. So also thanks to Ashcroft, who sent me a very cool piece of art over today.
That's brilliant.
He did like a tribute advert, beautiful colouring on it. Get well soon. He's had a little operation. He's not too bad, but get well soon in. And finally, Tribute now have a Substack. Tribute Press. God, me, Falpy, and Cliff have access to it at the moment. More will be added soon. So God only knows what's going to go on that. If I can figure out how to work Substack, I'll be writing on it. So sign up for Tribute Press on Substack. Look for that one. There you go. There's mine.
Nice. Damn.
Podcast, Earth Tea podcast.
Oh, yeah. Brill.
Yeah. The Hand That Shook the World. We've got the 7 Soldiers of Victory. Part 3 of that.
Yeah.
I feel that's up now. Yeah, that's going to be absolutely fantastic.
You might hear a bit more about those guys fairly soon.
Very soon.
Yeah.
Yes. We've got Change, Work in Progress Comics Anthology. Anthology of comics by a UK-based community of creators and what change means to them. Smash for its goal. Got another 9 days to go when you hear this. That's by Joe Stone, and we've got Zach's on that. There might be a few other people in that. I'm not too sure.
I think so. Yeah, people so we know anyway. Yeah,
go check that. We've got No Escape from Vida Futura, issue 1. Heaven is a prison with psychotic angels as guard. Isabella is dead, but she has a plan for that. A sci-fi afterlife thriller. That looks really cool. Go check that one out. Could do with a little bit of loving. It's got 14 days to go on that one. Knave of Hearts, 39-page premiere issue, indie comic, Sarah Webb. Get indie comic Knave of Hearts to a Comic-Con. Steampunk comic where gods stir up trouble, humanity is screwed. Feel like I'm living in that timeline. And we've got Blam and Glam, comic issues 1, 7, and toy figure. Guest on the show, Richard Morgan. That was about how many episodes?
A month ago, I'm going to say.
A comic set in an alternative 2020-2021 where a woman with amnesia battles demonic mecha monsters. Figure available too.
That was episode 413. So
there you go.
A couple of months ago.
There's a cover there by Bang Bez, which is absolutely fucking awesome. Let's go check that one out. I'm going to shout out the ACP recommends page again. ACP recommends.versel.app, and it's got all the titles we've listed back to episode 408. You can
go
stick
back
that
in podcast discussions again for me, because I think I didn't bookmark it last time. Would you do that?
Yeah, of course I will.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
And I also put it in our little ACP group, which I've got now. And lastly but not leastly, from D&G Comics, the day has arrived. Top G, Breaking Illusions, a limited edition first. Top G in his battle with the Matrix.
Hang on. What the actual fuck?
You fucking seen this thing?
Yes,
I've not seen it.
This is
my days.
This is in no. We just got to say satire. Yes. We are not in any way
endorsing that.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
But you look at the artwork and you think, man, this is fucking quality.
How the fuck is he like a billionaire or something? And this is the art.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because he's charging $97 per issue.
It's fucking terrible.
The artwork in this is absolutely shocking. But there you go. Top G.
Oh my god!
Not the one for me.
Yeah,
and a collectible, iconic moment in history. Purchased now.
Yeah.
Well, technically everything's a moment in history.
Forget the Top G. We just want Dan B. That's all.
In the house.
He's the man for me. And well, I love you all.
He's married.
Clean you
some play in there. Oh, and big shout out to Matt Scott. He's getting back into lifting. So
is he?
Yeah, get those guns on the go, boy.
He's going to be a monster when I meet him in a couple of weeks.
Oh, excellent. Hope so.
Yeah.
Prepare yourself.
Stuff. Yeah.
And we should prepare ourselves. Well, you lovely listeners should prepare yourselves to add to your wish list right now, because we're about to recommend some comics to your ears. I don't know what that even means. But as always, the guest goes first, and you've got some crackers, haven't you, Sam?
You want to bookend this, Sam? Do one, and then we'll do one at the end.
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, I've got a recommend as well. If I can quickly chuck one in.
Go for it. Yeah, go.
Go.
Yeah. Sorry. Just a shout out. Jamie Smart's doing some signings in October.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You're buddies with him, aren't you?
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. He's a lovely guy. So if you can get to, let's read this out. So he's in Birmingham at Waterstones on the 4th of October. Then he's in Liverpool on the 5th. He's in Blue Water on the 7th, and then Brighton on the 8th. So that's a fucking trek and a half. Is that
fucking Blue Water? Jesus Christ, you've been there, Jesus.
I have been there, yeah.
Ooh.
But yeah, he doesn't live too far away from Blue Water, I don't think. So that one's not too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can get there, tell him I sent you, and he might give you a high five or something.
My wife took me to see Superman Returns in Blue Water at the cinema. She paid for like the luxury seats, and it was like all you could eat, like snacks, and it was like all you could eat, had drink and hot drinks. Unfortunately, we went in the hottest day of the year, and I wasn't really in the mood to be drinking tea and coffee on a leather settee watching Superman Returns. But enough. That's my Blue Water story. I haven't been back since. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, Jamie Smart. Jamie Smart. Definitely check out his work.
Definitely.
Yeah,
love
definitely.
That story.
So on to my first recommend. So I've got a book called Kodi by an artist called Jared Cullen. It's about, I don't know, 120 pages, 160 odd pages actually, published by Top Shelf. And it's just a beautiful book, even if you don't like the story. It's all done in watercolor.
Nice.
Absolutely amazing. But it is a nice little story. It's kind of, I don't know if it's all ages, but it's, it certainly doesn't have any swearing or anything like that. So I guess any age can probably read it. So that's definitely one to pick up. He has a YouTube channel as well where he's always doing watercolor paintings and stuff like that. And I think he's going to start doing live streams as he works on the second Kodi book. So if you want to see him sort of creating some of his comic pages live, then go and find him on YouTube. It's definitely worth it.
Cool.
Nice. It does look. We were very fortunate. Sam shows the cover.
Yeah, it looks nice.
It looks bloody lovely. Tony, what have you got?
So I got two. My first one, I'm going to go a bit mainstream with this because I think it's a much missed out. People don't talk about this, and it was one of my books of the year. I think probably my book of the year last year was Fables, the new series of Fables, or the ongoing reboot of the ongoing Fables, issue 159. And this is the Black Forest series. That's the name of the story, and it's chapter 9 of 12. Now, I think it ends at the end of this story. I'm not 100% certain, but it never gets talked about, this book. It barely gets any promotion. I can't remember the last time I saw it on the shelf at Gosh. And along with Usagi, it's consistently the most brilliant monthly going. Genuinely. It's written by Bill Willingham, art by Mark Buckingham, inks by Steve Lealoha, who the three of them have got to be MVP at the moment, I'll tell you now, because they've been doing this book for donkey's years. I know there was that little gap, but it's just so good. What a team. Do you know what I mean? Along with the colours by Lee Lowridge, letters Todd Klein, editor Matthew Levine. So this is the revival of a series. It picks up in numbering from the original series, and it picks up in story from the long-running Vertigo series. Now, obviously, Vertigo is now lost to us. So the overview of the story, because I think you need to read this, but Snow and Big B and the kids who are growing up fast, they've all headed off into the woods, away from the troubles in New York City and elsewhere. But inevitably, trouble follows them, and things start happening in the woods, and there's a series of murders. And there's a kind of a battle, a war of wills and war of, actual war going on about who's going to be kind of the daddy of the forest. And there's various players. So rather than, they decide to, the various players of this, demons and gods and Big B and, rather than challenging each other to a physical fight, they say, right, whoever can solve this murder first, this series of murders first, will be the person in charge. So that's where the story goes, which is kind of cool. Just beware, it doesn't come out monthly. You will have to look for it. I think it's 3 months since the last issue. But has anyone here read it before?
Yeah, I read the first trade.
Yeah, okay. The first trade's a different artist, but I think Mark Buckingham takes over the second or third trade, Dan. So it's worth staying with. But so what they do is they get all the fairy tale characters, and they do a number of things with them. They humanize them, so they become relatable. They become multifaceted. They become subject to failure and success and emotions and love affairs and violence, and they make them three-dimensional people, and they have motivations and weaknesses and fallibilities, but none of them are 100% good people, none of them are 100% evil people, which is kind of we talked about cliches and stereotypes earlier, didn't we? This is the book that utterly plays with stereotypes the most. Very layered, but the art is just fucking die for. Absolutely. Just have a look at a few pages while we're talking now, guys. But it's kind of it bridges that little gap of, for a while we saw that on television, didn't we? We had all those things that were fairy tale characters in the real world, and I kind of think that's why Fables never got made into a TV series, because we had those other things that I never watched, to be fair. But it's part fantasy, it's part fairy tale. Obviously, they use the backstory of these characters. So Little Bo Peep will be that person, Snow White is probably that person, but it's so much more now. It plays into that sort of postmodernism, but it also has elements of maybe a folk horror story as well, which is really interesting. They know what they're doing with it, utterly, don't they? So how Hellboy takes old fairy stories, fairy tales, and gives them sort of a modern twist. He'll meet, the Belgian bog monster or something and have to fight it, this sort of thing. They do that a bit as well. But it involves the twists of being in the modern world as well. And they take that fantasy fairy tale environment and they cunningly make it relatable to the reader, which I think is really good. Just glorious. There's a really interesting design to a lot of the pages. I don't want to say this and make it sound like it's boring, but the way that the pages are framed sometimes has almost like a stained glass outline to it. With almost like a border with things happening around the edges sometimes and stuff like that. A lot of them are full bleed, but you'll get guys with flaming swords and wood creatures and elves and stuff like that, and then right in the middle of it will land a helicopter, and Cinderella will come out because she's kind of the secret agent of the world, of their little world. I genuinely am jealous of people who haven't discovered it. It's another one that I read with my boy. We read it as trades. I didn't catch up on it. I didn't catch on to the coolness till it started coming out in trade, so I sort of read it in that way. But much of the series happens in this forest, and the current series, previously it was in New York and it was in other dimensions and all that sort of thing, but a lot of the stuff currently goes on to it. And Larridge's colours, just, man, he plays with the darkness of the forest, the lush deep greens of it, the fields in the middle of clearings and stuff like that. Absolutely beautiful. And watch out for Tinkerbell, because she will fuck you up, which is but yeah, my first one is Fables. Get on it. It's the best thing on the shelves. From a craft point of view. Why people aren't going on about this, I don't know.
It's also got some of the most stunning covers.
Oh man, so beautiful.
Just from a design perspective, and just everyththing about it is just.
You can see why there's been books just of the covers.
Yeah,
it's that sort of thing. Yeah. Very much the old Vertigo, the Dave McKean covers and this sort of thing. We would get these just amazing covers, Brendan McCarthy and all this sort of thing. They were very well known for their covers, I think, Vertigo, rightly so. This is a continuation again of it. Yeah. Nice. That's my first one. Guys.
Nice. From one set of Fables to another, because I'm going to jump in now with my one. Short one, but I read issue 1 of The Mighty Barbarians from Ablaze Publishing, who are the guys that are also putting out, the Conan, but they call it the Sumerian.
The French
I
forgot it was
yeah.
That explains it then. Yeah. Okay.
Because this is basically The Mighty Barbarians is almost like a super team made up of barbarians. But obviously, the clues in the title. This is the writer is Michael Morisi of the brilliant Barbaric, and art is Giuseppe Safaro. Colours by Barbara Nascenzo, and letters by Jim Campbell. Good old Jim Campbell. And this is essentially just a fun team of classic barbarians. It's they're barbarians. They loot, they plunder, they conquer. That's what they do, and they do it alone. Until now. Bum, bum, bum. Basically, this is a team of barbarians, including the likes, the leader of which is Cull, the Conqueror, Robert E.
Right,
Howard's Cull.
okay, yeah.
So, when an unstoppable force starts consuming one world after another, sorceress Morgan Le Fay, yes, that Morgan Le Fay, uses her magic to assemble a team of skull-cracking warriors who must somehow work together to save all of existence. There's a young trickster, Anansi, a Viking shield maiden Berka, the shape-shifting Nanook, and their leader, heir to the fallen kingdom and mightiest of warriors, Cull. Though their alliance is uneasy, they will do whatever it takes to cut the heart right out of their mutual enemy. Issue 1, essentially, this is on like 6 issues at the moment, but I saw this on my sort of browse, and just Barbarians are just fucking cool, aren't they? But and I must say, Barbaric was a huge fan of that, so I thought, you know, Michael knows what he's doing with this sort of sword and sandals sort of epic. I didn't expect. Basically, it feels almost like a Magnificent Seven, kind of like, because
I'm going to say it's got to get the gang together.
And issue 1 was a very much getting the team together, which I do really like that sort of plot point, that whole section of, like, you know, getting the team together. You see something that they each one, because they're in like different worlds. It's not like they're all in different worlds on the same planet. They're going from different place, picking up like just the best warriors from these places, because there is an evil that is just swarming through all of these different reality's the wrong word, but realms. So we have this cool Morgan Le Fay sort of moving from place to place. You see the warriors just being badass, or, you know, you immediately get a sense of the kind of character that they are. And then it finished, but I didn't really know it. I didn't know Cull was going to be in it either. And I must admit, I don't have much history or experience with Cull, but I know of him.
Yeah.
So when that reveal came about, I was like, holy shit. Are they doing like one of those, you know, sort of mixing lots of different characters from different, almost a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but with barbarians? Because I just like that. I just like that kind of shit. You can do some crazy stuff with it. It's not, you don't have to think too much about it. There's evil snake type magic and zombie like creatures, and issue 1 flies by at a pace. I would maybe say sort of wait for a trade, see what the entire the first arc is like.
It's been out a while, isn't it?
Yeah, it has been out a while. I think the latest one is issue 6, which is just coming out. Issue 6 will be coming out in September. As I see from the ablaze.net, if you want to check out a lot of their other stuff. Issue 6 got a lovely cover. It's almost like the strongest cover that should have been the cover for issue 1. I mean, the cover for issue 1's decent. It's there's some good stuff going on. But I'd probably be intrigued to read the collected version myself. But if you like swords, you know, monsters, that Conan kind of vibe.
Howard, yeah.
Howard, who doesn't?
It does say in the there's a couple of characters actually in it. I didn't realise at the time, because they say Cull is created by obviously Robert E. Howard. Thongor, have you heard of Thongor?
Yeah, Thongor's Lynn Carter.
Lynn Carter, yes.
Get in.
And Thongor is the first character at the beginning. I didn't know this. I've only just sort of realised this.
He had Lynn Carter wrote a lot of the Conan books after Robert E. Howard died. So a lot of them with Elsprog de Camp, but Lynn Carter did Thongor, and Thongor had a very brief, I think, Creatures on the Loose, Bronze Age Marvel appearance. Yeah.
He's in the first scene. Not sure if he's going to come back into it. There's
okay, right.
His sort of
no
fate.
Spoilers.
Yeah, his fate is unknown, but seeing as it is a name, I think it's fairly obvious that probably he's going to return. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. I've got to buy this now, you fucker. Right.
The Conan character is so strong. Like, you think of it with Barbarian, you go straight to Conan. How do you do a different character that isn't? I presume you have to read the comic and find out.
Definitely, out of it, like, you can see, like, the way Thongor is drawn on the first page, it looks almost Arnold Schwarzenegger and Conan the Destroyer, kind of like, but with dark hair kind of look to it. He's got a big, massive skull on as a sort of shoulder armor, but there is
he wearing a thong?
You can't see it. but you let your imagination run wild, Tony Esmond.
Okay.
No, actually, don't. That's probably not good for anyone. And also Cull was the way he looks, because sometimes Cull for me felt like this is going to sound really terrible, because I know there's been lots of different stories, like a diet Conan. Do you know what I mean? There was Conan, but I know Cull had different kind of stories. So
yeah, I think Cull predated Conan actually, but I do know what you mean. I think it's presented in sort of popular media.
Exactly.
We've had Arnie, and then we've had Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah, and you think, oh, Cull, they think, oh, because it's like Conan, he's got to look like Conan, that kind of thing. But he doesn't in this. Do you know what I mean? He looks like his own, like a proper
An Atlantean.
Yeah. So, it's just a fun rollicking, getting their band together. Like I say, it's if you like those sort of Magnificent Seven, getting badass warriors together. I don't know where the story's going to go, but it could be quite fun and adventurous. I think Morrissey has a good sort of pulpy sort of rhythm to his writing.
I'm surprised he's writing for a Blaze, because didn't he do the DC writing thing? Didn't he? Do you remember?
Yeah. And he's
we had him on about 3 years ago, didn't we? 4 years ago, I suppose.
Yeah. Brilliant writer, and obviously, I think maybe after Barbaric they said, "We've got an idea. We've got these properties. Do you want to write something?" There could have been something like that. So the Mighty Barbarians, give it a bash if you like that kind of thing. Dan,
we need like Brackman Morn and all these sort of people in it as well. All the other Howard stuff, the obscure Howard stuff. Yeah.
I read a book that you got me for my birthday as a lovely gift. The 6 Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton. I didn't realise I'd actually bought this in. It might have been Gary Watson was selling this on the ACP Slack, and I'd bought the single issues, but I'd never got round to reading them.
Oh, right. Okay.
So this was great having the trade. So I've just left the 6 in the poly.
I was reading this as it came out actually.
I really like Carl Stark's. It's just his humour is just so on point, and he kind of knows structure in the story, the writing, the dialogue. The synopsis is: the world's most unlikable action star has been found dead, and his previous TV sidekicks are looking to solve the mystery. How can you catch a murderer when almost everyone hated the victim? Now these stunt kids sidekicks are going to learn what it means to be a star in the new show. That is, if any of them survive the Stuntman War. And the Trigger Keaton is Chuck Norris, isn't he? A kind of version of Chuck Norris. He's an absolute fucking arsehole. He's got no redeemable features going for it. He's got really horrible comments throughout. But one of them is when like he's got the girl in the group is on set and she starts making a comment and he's like, if I wanted to listen to like a young woman open her mouth, I'd be unzipping my flies. And it's like, fucking hell, man. You're fucking horrible.
Yeah. Is that horrible?
It kind of sets him up as being an absolute douchebag. And like, why do you care about what's happening to this guy? But it's so well written and structured. The art is by Chris Schweizer. It does an absolutely admirable job.
A great art, isn't it? Like giving them all characters, because it's also this book is a love letter to like action movies and like Hollywood sort of action movies and action TV shows, wasn't it? That kind of thing. Because
it has like every chapter is introduced like one of the shows that one of the sidekicks were involved in.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah,
was that Frankenstein and Frankenstein, where like Frankenstein becomes a cop, and him and his buddy work together to solve crimes. And
there's too much cocaine around that time, wasn't there?
Yeah. It's just such a joy to read for both the action and the humor. The overmatter in the back is absolutely something else. That's really really.
It was good in the individual issues. So have they compiled all of that? Like,
so you get like a Reddit forum board where people discussing it. You get bits of the script they're working on, and interview the actors Yurt, which they talk about, and they got an IMDb page for Trigger Keaton. And do you know they got the did you know section as a trivia?
Yeah.
In 1987, Keaton was accused by stuntman Lou Raines of intentionally knocking his eye out with a flaming brand during a fight sequence on the TV show Martial Art, which is this fucking great name for a show. It's just basically Walker, Texas Ranger. Keaton retorted that it's not his fault that Reeves was terrible at his job, and that only having to see half of how shit he is at life now did him a favour. This would mark the beginning of near countless numbers of such accusations. So this actor, he gets like one of the guys at the studio signed him up for like a lifetime deal of like 10, 15 years of making films, and he couldn't get fired. So he was just an absolute fucking bellend on everything he did.
Yeah. And it's almost like getting a team together with this book, isn't it? Like all the sidekicks sort of come together.
They'll come together, try and work out what's going on, and they're kind of working over the trauma that Trigger Keaton kind of inflicted on them. That some of them they've kind of moved on. A lot of them is kind of
but they're also badasses themselves as well.
Yes,
they're all like stunt actors and things like that.
He forced them to actually, because he's absolutely deadly, Trigger Keaton, and he trained these people up to be martial artists himself, and they can throw a punch or two. Except for one who he did like a Knight Rider style show, and one of them does the voice for the car, and he's just pretty much an abject coward through the entire thing.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of Carl Stark's or kind of 80s action cinema like me, I think you get a lot out of the 6 sidekicks of Trigger Keaton.
I need to reread this because I know there's loads of moments that I just were amazing. Yeah.
I've gone back, read it twice, and
some interesting twists as well. Some interesting
twists.
Yes,
definitely.
Yeah.
It's really got the cliffhanger bit down. Like every issue ends with like, no, I killed him, or I know who killed him. And then you read on the next bit, and it's like, well, actually, no, I didn't actually do it. But you're like, oh, okay. I can't help but feel like I was partially responsible. It's good though. Yeah, well worth a read.
Nice.
Oh, can I just mention something? Foolishly, I've missed 2 shout-outs. Can I quickly squeeze them in here?
Yeah.
Dave Cranner for Small Press Day, which is next weekend. He's doing a free UK postage in his online shop, which is glasscitycomics.bigcartel.com.
Nice.
You use the code SBD running from the 1st of August to the 7th. You get free UK postage on any of Dave's books. So go check that out. From Alan Henderson with Small Press Day next weekend. He'll be at Edinburgh event organised by Forbidden Planet in Chambers City from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for anyone in the area. So go check that. Alan Henderson, presumably there with the Penguins, the Edinburgh in the City Chamber from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for Small Press Day. If you've got any, I presume Small Press Day, there's going to be quite big, loads of stuff going on. So keep it peeled. We'll post it in the Slack if anyone's going there or do anything.
Whatever you're doing, whether you be,
I think Gosh has got one.
Be a creator or you just go pop along. We hope you have a great Small Press Day and discover some new books.
Yeah,
and just meet up with some wonderful creators. That's what it's all about. Tony.
Yeah, so my last one is back to my yearly recommendation for all things Tomorrows. And the most recent one I've read is back issue 145 by Tomorrows of the aforementioned and Michael Urie, who kind of runs it, edits it. I get this along with Jack Kirby Collector and Alter Ego on my pull list at the shop and absolutely love them. Every time they come out, I absolutely look forward to them. I think some guests who are coming up on the show also make use of this very much so in the stuff they do. Where else are you going to get a magazine that mixes the history, the craft, and this sort of very infectious nostalgia that they share with you on Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery? I mean, it's fairly niche. We're all a bit niche, aren't we? But this is fairly niche. But they do it with such sort of genuine, contagious enthusiasm that I just love it. There's also you get something on Doc Ock, you get something on the Kingpin, but also you get a whole article on the Jackal and Carrion. If you remember them.
No, man, I don't remember them.
With comments from Jerry Conway and Terry Kavanagh. A favourite villain of mine, I think mostly because he was on the cover of the first Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man, is the Tarantula. Do you remember him with the sort of spiky shoes?
Yeah, he's all in red.
How do you fucking walk around like that?
I presume there were like points at the front running, and he was kicking people with them.
Sort of poison on them, weren't they? Is that right?
Yeah. So one was like to knock him out, and one was to kill him.
That's it, yeah.
I don't know why you'd want to knock him out for killing him, but
yeah. So there's comments from Sal Buscema and Conway in that bit as well. There's a really good article on Kingpin, and it includes scans of John Romita John Romita Senior's OA on it, which is beautiful. Just seeing the original pages. There's also a scan of. You guys are too young, but at one point comics went horizontal in the UK. So where they used to be magazine size, they were sort of turned on their side, and they managed to fit 2 pages, cram 2 pages. And there was
fucking hell.
Yeah, there was Super Spider-Man, and there was the Titans issues, and it's got some scan to that, which is unusual. Bear in mind, this is an American magazine. There's an OA scan, full-page scan of Frank Miller's Kingpin in Daredevil 177. There's a discussion on Mazzucchelli's art in it. An article on the Puma, if you remember the Puma in Spider-Man.
That was always a really weird villain, that one. He was kind of like a kind of sometimes villain, sometimes ally.
Yeah, and it went back to that whole thing that a lot of Spider-Man's rogue, like the Vulture, the Scorpion, the Lizard, that are all these sort of animal totems things, aren't they? They're sort of, I know they really lent into that totem thing on JMS, but they all seem to have, for a while, they were like the rhino, there were sort of animals, weren't they, compared to Spider-Man? But there's an interview with Tom DeFalco, and you get the original typed pages of Tom DeFalco's character notes on the story, and you get Ron Friends' original designs. I'll name a couple of the other villains. There's a piece on the kangaroo, a piece on the gibbon from Spidey 110, a piece on Mindworm from Amazing Spider-Man.
Why the fuck would he pick that name, Gibbon?
There's a thing on Rocket Racer. Do you remember him, the skateboarding fucking geezer? Big Wheel, the Spot, which is more of a recent one. And Rapier from Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man Annual 2. There's also a lovely selection of full page, I think it's sort of 6 pages. They have like a section in the middle that's all OA. And there's a Larson page in there and a Zek page, OA scan of the original pencils, and a John Romita Senior page as well. So it's worth your money already, isn't it? It's just great. If you've got any kind of love for the character or the history or the original art of it, the Kirby Collector is one of my other favorite ones, and that has full page Kirby pencils and Kirby inks. Nice, beautiful stuff. So get anything by Tomorrows. You can get them digitally as well. They have the way you can buy them digitally, but I tend to have them in their pull list, so they're a little bit pricey. They're about £10 each, but to me they're worth it anyway. There you go. It's my second one, guys.
I would have, that the Rapier. I would have gone that with a kind of. I would have thought twice about that name.
It's a bit like therapist.com, isn't it?
Yeah, fighting the Rapier. What? Rapier? He runs around with a sword. Oh, God. Thank God.
I think it's mail.com. It's one of these sort of freebie mail web services, and they do all sort of like, they do all different jobs. And one of them is you can have John Smith at therapist.com. That's open to confusion, isn't it?
Yeah. They got it's a classic. Oh God, what's the fucking thing with the Blue family? Arrested Development.
Oh yeah.
With Tobias, and he's an analyst and a therapist.
Yeah.
And an analtherapist, and this anal rapist.
Classic joke.
That's a great series.
Yeah. Speaking of a great series, to finish off the. Have you got 2, Dan, or you just got 1?
No, that's just the one.
Just the one. So to finish us off, Sam.
Leave that gap. Leave that open.
Yeah. Sam, what would you like to
finish us off with?
Finish us off with.
So, I'm just going to skip past that.
Yeah, probably for the best.
So I've got.
Please don't.
I've got the collection of Long Gone Dawn by Etherington Brothers, which it's a hardback edition, which I picked up at Thought Bubble last year from those guys, and it was only about £20, I think, or 25, and it's like 250 pages, and it's kind of A4 size, and it's very sort of kind of bande dessinée style. Big pages, loads of stuff crammed into it. The artwork is absolutely phenomenal. And the stories are really good. Like, the whole thing's broken down into kind of 5 individual stories, each equating to about 60 pages or so. So it's kind of like similar kind of structure that you get with like Asterix or Tintin or something like that. And it's all ages, so you kids can read it as well. But I read it over Christmas and I really enjoyed it. And it's just, I like flicking through the book now just to see how they kind of lay pages out and things like that, because it's just great. Like, do you can fall into the trap of having reading order issues and things like that. Yeah. There's just absolutely none of that in this. Like, you never get lost. You never wonder where you're going next, or in terms of like what panel you need to read next or anything like that. It is just really great, and it does some. Lorenzo at Etherington does some like fantastic like establishing shots, which just make you want to throw your pens in the bin and just go, oh, fuck this. There's no point. Which I'm sure if you said that to him, he'd probably want you to, he'd want the opposite reaction, which is to try and get as good as he is, you know,
Yeah,
because
and
he's quite a positive guy.
enthusiastic guys, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So if I don't know for certain if it's at Thought Bubble this year, but I imagine it will be. And those guys generally are like the first table you get to when you get to Thought Bubble.
Yeah.
So if you've got 20 quid or whatever, I highly recommend you pick that up.
It's also you can find those books in like bookshops as well, can't you? Like the DFC sort of library.
I think they do better in bookshops, don't they? I think.
Yeah. So definitely a great
I
think to check out.
Yeah, I think it originally came out through the Phoenix. And having a quick look earlier, you can find like the individual books on Amazon Marketplace and things like that. I think they're slightly smaller. I think they're the original kind of Phoenix size, which was more kind of US paper size, whereas this is a bit bigger. So it's, you know, as a format, I personally think it's worth forking out for the hardback edition, just because it's also just a nice bit of shelf porn as well. When it looks, you know, when you got it on your shelf, it looks good.
Nice. We're very pro shelf porn here.
Yeah. And porn.
I knew I was just waiting for that. So there you go, a fantastic selection of comics for you to check out, comics and magazines and just general comics goodness. And thank you, Sam, for joining us this week to talk about all
good stuff.
Cheers, Sam.
Manner of things.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been a fun one, and we hope you at home have enjoyed it as well. If there's anything we brought up in this week's show, whether it be a topic of working on your own comics, or perhaps I said a name of a creator wrong and you want to say, you silly boy. There's several different ways you can get in touch with us. You can email us, awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. On social media, wherever it may be, we are at The Awesome Pod. If you want to join a wonderful community of people from all over the world who just want to talk about comics and just have a good time, just discussion, actually like genuine discussion about comics, then join the Awesome Comics Podcast Slack community and channel. Loads of groups in there. Get in touch with us about how to join. It's growing all the time, and there's just lots of good comics vibes, which is what we want to support. Thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe and leave a review. It just helps get the word out about the show, and we just really appreciate it.
Feel free to retweet or repost the episodes if you're enjoying them. Always lets other people see it. It introduces us and you to new comics. Do it.
And certainly, if you're listening now and you're a new listener, welcome.
Hello.
Yes, thank you very much for listening to the show. And you may have heard us on like Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What are the networks are we on, Tony?
We're on the Pod Network, Pod Adolf Hitler's Gift Shop.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ.
Well, we're going Marty. We don't need roads.
Oh, you don't want to know. Listen to this, you don't want to know. But what you do want to know is that we will be back this time next week. I can say this time because it's very amorphous, isn't it? It could be any time when everyone's listening to this. But we will be back with more great comics chatter, maybe a little bit of a podcasting chatter as well next week. So just
it's going to be another good one next week.
Stay tuned. And we've also got some other interesting stuff in the works that you should be getting quite excited about. But until then, where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
neverownanything.com. 2 podcasts dropping from me this week. One promoting Jonny's new book, Jonny Cannon's new book, and another one with some Superman themes in it. So have a listen out.
Nice.
Dan?
You can find me, you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com. You can find me on X at vanguardcomic.
Fuck that.
Well said.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
We do a little bit of trolling.
We do. We do. And if you want to see my trolling, then find me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you again, Sam, for joining us. Where can people find you and your work and everything in between?
I'm also on X, but fuck that. So you can find me on Instagram under Skinny Drawn Boy.
Yes.
Good stuff. And on the Slack. You're active on the Slack, man. Thank you for that.
I love it.
I was trying to spitball an idea of doing like a kind of like a crit club where people put up their work and we kind of go in on it. Not hard, but kind of like with constructive crits.
I think we've got a history of being fair-handed, haven't we?
Yeah.
I think on there. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'll put it forward to the group.
Yeah.
So
we can put it in the advice channel, can't we?
Yeah.
Jump on board and get involved. Thank you very much for listening, everyone at home. We hope you have been entertained, informed, and maybe added some comics to read this week that you didn't even think about before you heard this show. But until next time, wherever you are in the world, we hope you're happy, healthy, reading lots of comics. We love you very much. We all love you very much. Don't we, Tony?
So I think my internet went down for a second.
Yeah, whatever. You cut off when you were talking about how much you love the listeners.
No, went again.
Yeah. But whatever you're doing, just keep reading comics, keep making comics, and I always forget this bit. What should the listeners do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Fuck yeah.
That's yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, you did. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
See you then. Bye.